Well, I mean, it is worth kind of looking into some of the numbers, in particular that scary chart, which Sir Patrick Vallance showed us, which looks more or less like this. We've recreated it here. And this shows you essentially the number of cases that we've seen in recent days. So that's these black bars here. And what you've got in the white bars is the illustration that the chief scientific advisor was talking about. So cases doubling every 7 days. And what it gives you an idea of is what happens if a disease spreads unchecked. And that is indeed, our experience from the previous time there was the lockdown. He said the previous time, I should say, the disease was spreading this fast. 3,105 new cases on the 15th of September. He said it could rise to approximately 49,000 new cases. That's daily new cases on October the 13th if it doubles every 7 days. But it is just worth asking. There are some question marks and some assumptions that go into these kinds of illustrations that are worth questioning. I've just kind of converted that into a line graph so you can compare it with some other things. Because, for instance, we know that last time around when the disease was spreading, for instance, it was spreading at a far faster rate, at least on the basis of the deaths numbers we had at the time, doubling every kind of 3 or 4 days. And that actually would create an even bigger, even steeper line than Sir Patrick Vallance was talking about. But it is just worth asking, why is he talking about it doubling every 7 days? Now, I asked that question just because that equates to about 10% growth. But we know from the government's own estimates, remember they did the R number, they updated it on Friday. We know from their estimates last time around on Friday, they said it was growing at a rate from 2 to 7%. So that's still quite a lot shy of 10%. Have things changed since? We don't really know. We didn't get much elaboration from either of the speakers today. But nonetheless, there's a big difference between that 7% growth and the 10% growth that Sir Patrick Vallance was talking about. And I'll show you what we mean here. So there's Sir Patrick Vallance and what he was talking about, doubling every 7 days. Now, if it's doubling every 10 days, so it's confusingly, that's 7% growth. It's actually a lot more shallow, that line. It's still growing quite fast, and you're up to kind of towards 20,000 by the middle of October, but that's less than half of the 49,000 that he was talking about. But that's not the only thing to bear in mind, the current growth rate. There's also the question of whether that growth rate is actually going to continue. And the reason to kind of focus on that is that, as both of the chief scientist and the chief medical officer were talking about today, we are following a relatively similar trajectory in this disease, in this latest wave, as France and indeed Spain. So you can see their number of cases going up and up and up there. Whereas the UK, we're more or less in line. That's the latest figures that we've had as of yesterday, more or less following in line. So the big question is, what would happen if we followed either of those lines, more or less? Would it be the same as what Sir Patrick Vallance was talking about? In other words, up like this, or would it look different? And actually, if we were to follow in this country, as indeed was quite similar last time around, as was the case last time around with Italy and France, if we were to follow more or less in line with where their case trajectory is, it would be a very different picture. It would be a far more shallow increase. There we are, is what would happen if we were in line with France. If they were in line with Spain, it would be more or less the same. You'd be up to about 10,000 cases by the middle of October, rather than 40,000 cases. And so, while clearly these are just illustrations, and the chief scientific advisor was clear about that, there was a big difference between what some other people would think is a more plausible situation, in other words, that we're going to just follow in line with where France is going, where Spain is going, compared with this very scary line that we saw earlier on today.